Have you ever experienced a moment so unexpected, so overwhelming, that it brought you to tears?
For Mina, a young waitress working at a small family-owned restaurant in Seoul, life was nothing more than a cycle of endless shifts, tired smiles, and customers who barely acknowledged her presence. She had long stopped believing in miracles. Her only goal was to survive another day. That evening, like every other, Mina moved between tables, taking orders, serving dishes, and cleaning up in between. The scent of sizzling meat and freshly brewed tea filled the air. The restaurant was lively, filled with laughter and chatter, but to her, it was just background noise and endless routine she had memorized down to the smallest details. Then, the door swung open, and a man walked in. He was dressed simply, a dark cap pulled low, a plain black hoodie, and an air of quiet composure.
Mina barely glanced at him as she wiped down a nearby table. Another customer. Just like any other.
She approached him with her notepad, offering the same polite but distant smile she gave everyone.
"Good evening, sir. Welcome. What would you like to order?"
The man looked up briefly, offering a small, polite smile.
"Just a bowl of ramen and some tea, please." Mina nodded, scribbling down the order.
There was something warm and familiar about his voice, but she didn't think much of it. As she walked away, her co-worker leaned over. "Hey, that guy looks kind of familiar," she whispered.
Mina shrugged. Probably just another office worker grabbing dinner.
But as the evening went on, she noticed something odd. Customers were whispering, sneaking glances toward the man in the corner.
She frowned slightly. Why were they acting like that? Still, she ignored it.
The food was ready, and Mina returned to his table, placing the steaming bowl of ramen in front of him.
"Enjoy your meal."
The man looked up at her, his gaze lingering for a second before he gave a small nod.
"Thank you." There was something different about him. But Mina pushed the thought away. He was just another customer.
As the night continued, the whispers grew louder. Mina tried to block them out, but when she turned around again, she caught a group of teenage girls at a nearby table practically trembling with excitement, sneaking pictures with their phones.
Mina sighed. Whoever this man was, he was definitely someone important. But she had no time to think about it. When the man finished his meal, he called her over. "The check, please," he said. Mina nodded, printed out the receipt, and brought it to him. He pulled out his wallet and placed a crisp stack of bills inside the check folder before standing up. "Thank you for the meal," he said before walking toward the exit. Mina picked up the check folder absent-mindedly, expecting to see the usual payment. But when she opened it, her breath caught in her throat. Inside was a tip unlike anything she had ever seen. Her hands trembled as she quickly recounted the bills. And then gasps echoed through the restaurant. One of the teenage girls grabbed Mina's arm, her voice shaking with excitement. "Do you even know who that was?" Mina blinked, confused. "What?" Her coworker rushed up, eyes wide with disbelief. "Mina, that was Kim Soo-hyun." Her entire body froze. Kim Soo-hyun? The international superstar? The man who had just left her a life-changing tip? Her heart pounded as she turned toward the restaurant door, but he was already gone. And before she could stop herself, tears welled up in her eyes. Mina stood frozen, her hands gripping the check folder as her mind struggled to process what had just happened. Kim Soo-hyun? Her co-worker shook her arm, eyes still wide with excitement. "Mina, do you realize what just happened? You just served one of the biggest actors in the world, and you didn't even recognize him." Mina's heart pounded in her chest. She glanced down at the money again, her fingers trembling. It wasn't just a big tip, it was more money than she had ever seen in one place. More than she made in weeks. But why? Why would a global superstar, someone who could dine at the most expensive restaurants in the world, choose this small place? And more than that, why had he left her such a generous tip? Her co-worker grabbed the bill folder from her hands, counting the money. "This is insane. What are you going to do?" Mina swallowed hard. I don't know.
The customers at the restaurant were still whispering excitedly, some of them checking their phones, probably trying to confirm if it was really him.
Mina felt overwhelmed.
She took a deep breath, her hands still trembling as she carefully placed the money in her apron. Her manager approached, having heard the commotion.
"What's going on here?"
One of the teenage girls at the table practically screamed.
"Kim Soo-hyun was just here."
The manager's eyes widened.
"What? And no one told me?" Mina lowered her gaze.
She had served him like any other customer, without special treatment, without even knowing who he was.
And somehow, that made her feel even more emotional.
Her co-worker nudged her.
"Mina, you should at least post about it. Can you imagine how many people would love to hear this story?" Mina hesitated.
She glanced at the restaurant door, feeling an inexplicable lump forming in her throat. Something told her that Kim Soo-hyun hadn't wanted attention. He had come in quietly, dressed simply, acting like just another person. She clenched her fists.
"No. I don't think he did this for recognition." Her co-worker frowned. "Then why?"
Mina wiped the tears forming in her eyes, shaking her head.
"I don't know, but I don't want to turn this into some viral moment. It feels personal." Her co-worker sighed. "I guess I get that.
But still, this is crazy. You were just handed a life-changing tip by one of the biggest actors in the world."
Mina nodded slowly, still trying to comprehend everything.
As the restaurant started to close, she went to the back room, sitting down on one of the stools, her fingers still curled around the check folder. Her phone buzzed in her pocket. Frowning, she pulled it out and looked at the screen.
A message from an unknown number. Mina's breath hitched. "Unknown, did you count it?"
Her fingers trembled as she typed a response.
"Mina, who is this?"
A few seconds later, the reply came.
"Unknown, someone who hopes it helps." Mina's stomach flipped. Could it be?
Her pulse raced as she hesitated, then finally typed back.
"Mina, Kim Soo-hyun?"
She waited, her heart pounding against her ribs.
3 dots appeared on the screen, signaling that the person was typing. Then, the message came through. "Kim Soo-hyun, meet me tomorrow. I have something else to tell you." Mina's breath caught in her throat.
Her world had already shifted in a way she never expected. And now, it looked like this was only the beginning. Mina stared at the message, her fingers frozen above the screen.
"Meet him? Tomorrow?"
Her mind spiraled with questions.
Why? What else could he possibly have to say?
He had already given her a tip that could change her life.
Was this a mistake? Had he sent the message to the wrong person?
But something deep inside told her this was real. She hesitated before typing a response.
"Mina, why?"
A few seconds later, the reply came.
"Kim Soo-hyun, I'll explain when we meet. 10 a.m. Grand Seoul Hotel lobby." Mina's stomach twisted. The Grand Seoul Hotel?
One of the most luxurious hotels in the country. This wasn't just a casual meeting, this was something bigger. Her fingers trembled as she typed her final response.
"Mina, okay. I'll be there."
She placed her phone on the table and exhaled shakily.
Her co-worker peeked into the back room. "Hey, are you okay?" Mina hesitated before nodding. "Yeah.
She paused, gripping her phone tightly.
"Kim Soo-hyun wants to meet me tomorrow." Her co-worker's jaw dropped. "What? Are you serious?" Mina nodded slowly. "He just sent me a message."
Her co-worker snatched the phone from her hands.
"Oh my God. This is insane. You have to go." Mina sighed. "I already said yes."
Her co-worker let out a small squeal.
"Mina, do you understand what's happening?
This isn't just some lucky tip, this could change your entire life."
Mina swallowed, still feeling the shock of it all. She had no idea what tomorrow would bring. But she knew one thing for certain: her life would never be the same after this. The next morning, Mina barely slept. Her thoughts ran wild, shifting between excitement and anxiety. What did he want to talk about? What if this was all a misunderstanding? By the time 9:55 a.m. arrived, she stood outside the Grand Seoul Hotel, her hands gripping the strap of her bag tightly. The people walking in and out of the hotel looked important, confident, wealthy, a stark contrast to her simple life as a waitress. For a brief second, she considered turning back. But then, a familiar voice called out. "You made it." Mina turned and froze in place. Standing in the lobby, dressed in a sleek black suit, looking effortlessly elegant, was Kim Soo-hyun. This was the first time she was seeing him as the world saw him, not as a quiet man in a hoodie, but as a global superstar. Her throat felt dry as she managed a small, nervous smile. "Good morning." He smiled back. "Come on. Let's talk somewhere private." She nodded and followed him into a quiet lounge area. As they sat down, Mina couldn't hold back her curiosity any longer. What is this about?" she asked carefully. Kim Soo-hyun leaned forward slightly, his expression calm yet serious. "Mina," he said, "do you know why I left that tip for you?" She blinked, confused. I assumed you were just being generous." He shook his head. "It wasn't just about generosity." Mina swallowed hard. "Then, why?" Kim Soo-hyun studied her for a moment before answering. "I left it because I see something in you," he said. "You work hard. You don't just serve food, you do it with care, with patience. That's rare." Mina's chest tightened. No one had ever told her something like that before. He continued. "I believe in fate. And I believe people cross paths for a reason." She sat there, unable to process what was happening. "I want to help you," he said. Mina's breath hitched. "Help me, how?" Kim Soo-hyun reached into his pocket and pulled out a small white envelope. He slid it across the table. "Open it." Her fingers trembled as she carefully unfolded the letter inside. And the moment she read the words, her heart stopped. It was a job offer. At a prestigious hotel restaurant. Mina's eyes widened in disbelief. This isn't real." Kim Soo-hyun smiled. "It is. I have connections in the industry. I told them about you, and they're willing to give you a chance." Mina felt dizzy. A job like this could change her entire future. She looked up at him, her eyes filled with emotion. "Why me?" she whispered. Kim Soo-hyun's gaze was steady. "Because you deserve more than just surviving." Mina felt her throat tighten. For the first time in her life, someone truly believed in her. Mina's fingers tightened around the letter, her breath uneven as her mind struggled to grasp the reality before her. A job offer at a luxury hotel restaurant. A chance at a completely different life. She looked up at Kim Soo-hyun, still unsure if this was really happening. "Why are you doing this for me?" she whispered, her voice barely above a breath. Kim Soo-hyun leaned back slightly, a small, knowing smile appearing on his lips. "Because someone once did the same for me." Mina blinked in surprise. "What do you mean?" His expression turned thoughtful. "Before I became who I am today, I was just another struggling actor. I was about to give up when someone saw something in me, someone who believed in me before I believed in myself." Mina swallowed hard. "And now," he continued, his gaze locking onto hers, "I want to do the same for you." Mina's heart pounded against her chest. She looked back at the letter, reading the words over and over again, as if expecting them to disappear at any moment. "This is real," she murmured. Kim Soo-hyun nodded. "It is. But the question is, do you want it?" Mina took a shaky breath. This was everything she had ever wanted. She had spent years trapped in the same cycle, working late shifts, serving customers who barely looked at her, living paycheck to paycheck with no hope for something better.
And now, out of nowhere, a lifeline had been thrown her way.
But could she do it? Was she ready for something this big?
Her hands trembled as she gripped the letter tighter.
What if I fail? She whispered.
Kim Soo-hyun smiled softly.
Then you learn. Mina swallowed hard.
Her mind was screaming with fear and doubt, but her heart was telling her to take the risk. She looked up at him, determination settling in her eyes.
Okay, she said. I'll do it.
Kim Soo-hyun's smile widened slightly.
Good choice. Mina exhaled deeply, feeling like she had just jumped off a cliff, but instead of fear, she felt free.
That evening, Mina sat in her tiny apartment, staring at the letter on her table. Tomorrow morning, she would be stepping into an entirely different world. Her phone buzzed. She picked it up and saw a message from an unknown number.
Unknown, good evening, Miss Mina.
This is Chef Park, head chef at the Grand Seoul Hotel restaurant.
I'll see you at 7 a.m. Be on time. Mina's stomach flipped.
She quickly typed a response.
Mina, I'll be there. Thank you for the opportunity.
She put her phone down, her hands still shaking slightly. She had no idea what awaited her tomorrow. But for the first time in a long time, she wasn't just surviving, she was moving forward.
Tomorrow, she wouldn't be just another waitress. She would be someone with a future. And no matter how hard it got, she wasn't going to quit. Mina barely slept that night.
Her mind wouldn't stop racing. She kept picturing the elegant restaurant, the polished chefs, the pressure of working in a place she had never even dreamed of stepping into.
What if she messed up? What if she embarrassed herself?
But another thought lingered in the back of her mind.
What if this was the beginning of something greater?
At exactly 6:30 a.m., she stepped out of her apartment, wearing the simple uniform she had been given. It wasn't fancy, just a clean, professional chef's outfit. But when she looked at herself in the mirror before leaving, she felt different.
She wasn't just a waitress today. She was about to start something new.
When she arrived at the Grand Seoul Hotel, her stomach twisted in knots. The restaurant's entrance alone was intimidating: glass doors, gold lettering, an interior that looked like it belonged in a movie.
She took a deep breath and pushed the doors open. Inside, the kitchen was already bustling with movement.
Professional chefs moved with incredible speed and precision, preparing for the breakfast rush.
Mina suddenly felt small. Would she really be able to keep up with them?
A sharp voice pulled her out of her thoughts. "You're 2 minutes early," a deep, commanding tone said.
Mina turned to see a tall man in a crisp chef's uniform, arms crossed.
It was Chef Park.
"Not bad," he said, nodding slightly.
"But from now on, early means being in position and ready."
"Understood?" Mina straightened up immediately. "Yes, chef."
Some of the other chefs glanced at her, some with curiosity, others with skepticism.
"She's the new one of them whispered. "She won't last a week," another murmured. Mina heard them, but she didn't react.
She wasn't here to impress anyone, she was here to prove something to herself.
"Get to work," Chef Park ordered. "You'll start with prep."
Mina hurried to the prep station, where a pile of vegetables, herbs, and raw ingredients were waiting to be prepared. She picked up a knife, exhaled slowly, and began. Her hands were steady. She had done this before.
But this time, everything was different.
The pressure.
The expectations.
The fact that she wasn't just a waitress anymore, she was standing in a world she had never belonged to before. As she chopped, she could feel the other chefs watching her, waiting for her to fail. She wasn't going to give them that satisfaction. She moved faster, more precisely, focusing on every slice, every movement. When she finished, she stepped back, heart pounding.
Chef Park walked over, inspected her work, then nodded. "Not bad," he said. "But not good enough. Faster next time." Mina swallowed hard, but she didn't feel discouraged. She felt determined. This was just the beginning. And she wasn't going to quit. Mina barely had a second to breathe before the kitchen erupted into chaos. Orders came in one after another, the chefs moving like a synchronized machine. Each plate was crafted with perfection, every detail meticulously placed. Mina had never seen anything like it. At her old job, food was served quickly, with little thought beyond taste. Here, it was an art form, and every mistake mattered. She tried to keep up, chopping faster, moving quicker, but she could already feel the exhaustion creeping in. "Faster, Mina," one of the chefs snapped. "This isn't a home kitchen." She gritted her teeth and pushed through. She wasn't going to be the weak link. Just as she felt like she was finally catching up, a loud crash echoed through the kitchen. A tray of plated dishes had fallen to the floor, shattering on impact. The kitchen froze. The VIP table's meals were on that tray. Chef Park's cold gaze locked onto the scene. "Who did this?" A sous chef, his hands still shaking, he stammered, I lost my grip, chef." Chef Park's expression remained unreadable. "We have 5 minutes to redo those plates. Fix it." The tension in the kitchen was thick. Everyone scrambled to recover, but the sous chef who had dropped the tray was still too shaken to function properly. Mina saw it immediately. He wouldn't be able to get it done in time. Without thinking, she grabbed a fresh plate and started recreating the dish herself. The chef stared at her. "You don't know the full recipe," one of them muttered. But Mina did. She had been watching, studying, memorizing everything since the moment she stepped into this kitchen. Her hands moved fast, mirroring everything she had observed earlier. She drizzled the sauce perfectly, arranged the garnish precisely, her mind working faster than her hands. By the time Chef Park turned to check, the plate was done. The kitchen held its breath. Chef Park picked up the plate, inspected it closely, then set it down in front of the sous chef. "That's how it should be done," he said. Mina's heart nearly stopped. Did that mean she passed the test? The sous chef gave her a small, grateful nod before rushing the plate out. Chef Park turned back to her. "You have good instincts," he said. "Don't waste them." Mina bit back a smile. For the first time, she felt like she belonged here. And she wasn't going to let this chance slip away. Mina's hands still trembled slightly as she watched the sous chef rush the plate out to the VIP table. The weight of what had just happened hit her all at once. She had stepped in, recreated a dish she had never made before, and earned a nod of approval from Chef Park. But there was no time to celebrate. The dinner rush was far from over, and the kitchen was still a battlefield. Mina quickly fell back into place, moving with more confidence now. The other chefs, who had been skeptical of her, now gave her a second look, not with judgment, but with curiosity. "She's got guts," one of them muttered. "She won't quit that easily," another admitted. For the first time since stepping into this kitchen, Mina felt like she belonged.